Hello, this is Erin. Welcome back to Seek the Magic. Today is a solo episode, and I am so excited to talk about stories. Storytelling exists in our life, whether we like it or not. It's the stories we tell ourselves. It's what we hear on TV, hear on the news, hear from other people. It is an integral part of how we communicate and how we think. And it's top of mind for me because my son is an adamant storyteller, and stories become much more prominent when a little kid is telling them and getting you involved in them and really playing throughout the day. And that's the stage that Lucas is in now. So the stories will be often fantastical, often spur of the moment, literally just off the cuff and development. And I, of course, while, playing with him and listening to him and thinking about what is the deeper meaning, how is he coming up with these stories, what is the significance of what he's saying, what he's building, and of course, and I'm being in the moment with him as he's thinking about it, but I'm also fascinated by what drives certain threads, what drives certain thoughts. So typically these stories right now, he's really into cars, so they'll involve some sort of motor, dilemma, like a traffic jam or a car stuck at the top of a mountain, and maybe a scary animal like a dragon or lions in a cave or some sort of trap. And so there's always a main character or characters, some sort of dilemma, and then some character or something that will come to the rescue, often involving him or the people he's playing with, or if he's looping in us, then sometimes we will come and be part of it, and then there will be a resolution. So as he develops these, there's always tension. There's a moment about what happens, what are we going to do. And quite often when he presents the moment of tension, dilemma, then I say, oh no, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And he will inevitably say, this person is going to come to the rescue, or this person's going to come in and save, the current victim of the story. And it struck me not only how imaginative it is, but he's also playing with not only what he's learning, elements of how to solve a problem, no matter how fantastical, and the guarantee that there will be a solution, and the trust that something will be done to get whatever that main character is out of the situation, or someone will come in and save the day. And I love that, that innocence, and that innate human capacity at a young age to trust and know that things are solvable and things will be okay. And I feel like that's something that I can definitely learn from, and adults can learn from, because as we evolve, we tend to tell ourselves stories, but we think in terms of what's going to happen, what's the worst case scenario, can something be done about this? There's not always the search for the resolution or the trust in the resolution, and that something is going to turn out in a positive way. And I think we can learn from our kids to lean into solving a problem, lean into the trust that there will be a resolution and that things will turn out okay. And I realize that not everybody agrees with that philosophy of, thinking things will be okay. And there's lots of issues in the world that are certainly tragic. But I think looking back as children, we can take a lot from that philosophy. And he tells stories over and over again, and not 100% of the time, but most of the time he completes that narrative story arc, and he doesn't stop in the middle. There's always triumphs. Again, what stories are we telling ourselves, either knowingly or unknowingly? And why do some of them just seem to get stuck, or are we stuck in some stories, and can we help resolve some of them, or think of ways to reframe we're telling ourselves so there is more of a resolution in our lives so we can develop and be more caring, kind, hopeful individuals. So as evidence of young kids telling stories, we are story making creatures. From the moment we're born, we think of how things fit together. Our brains are wired to see patterns, narratives, how things begin, transform, and resolve. As children, the stories are crazy. There's less frameworks and filters in our mind. We don't have a developed prefrontal cortex. So the imagination is just wild and creative and amazing. And I think as we develop, we lose that. And it would benefit it would benefit adults to try to take some of that back and take some of that creativity back. And that would help us be all the better. As we grow, our stories shift. They become more grounded in truth, in patterns, and things that we're told. And they're not the let's invent a story. It's not that the stories go away. It's that they become patterns. They become ingrained in our subconscious. And maybe we're not as interested anymore in developing those wild stories about a kangaroo and a trek in the mountain and, being rescued because practically it just doesn't make sense to us. When we're older, we can still tell ourselves stories, and I think older children certainly do that too. They're more grounded in reality. But, again, as we develop more and more and are, faced with the practical things we have to do, goals in reality that we have to focus on, we're less likely to look at stories. And I want to make a concerted effort for, our children to maintain a sense of that creativity, that storytelling, because that can develop and make a difference in how they see the world. We tell ourselves stories like, "I'm late. I missed my window. This isn't for people like me. I'm being selfish. I can't switch careers right now. I can't play basketball. I can't do this." They that it's not those aren't facts that we're telling ourselves. They're narratives, and they're explanations that we've gathered based on our experiences, but then or what other people have told us or what we've observed, but then that can limit our capacity and our scope for what is possible. These stories are so deeply ingrained we don't even realize they're optional. They feel like reality. They're assumptions that we go on, and they're repeating ideas with emotional backing. In some cases, with careers, if we're on a certain path, we feel like we can't change. In relationships, we might not, we might feel like we need to put on a certain persona, or, with a group of friends, we might feel like we have a certain identity that we can't change. And so our adult stories don't have scary things like dragons, but they might have equally, if not more, detrimental things like shame, fear, and invisible cages. So think about that, and think about that stories can be magical and they can also be constraining. But the opportunity is to reflect on the stories that are spoken and the stories that are unspoken, and to decide which ones you want to change, and think about which ones have held you back. So the magic in this is that we have the power to tell and create stories, and that can hold us back, but then it can also lead us in new directions. So think about what stories you are telling yourself, or what stories the world is has impressed upon you that you might want to change. In my own life, the one that is dominant right now is, what can moms do? How can moms, hold a career and be good moms? And how can they balance it all. And there's like lots in the news about what, that moms have it really hard and that it's difficult to do and balance everything. And yes, that is absolutely true. It is, there's a lot that is going on in my mind, but I could take that story and I could become a victim of it, or I could say, this is also a wonderful gift to be able to care for my children and have a career. And how can I use that to my advantage to either help other people or, grow in ways that I didn't know I was growing before? How can I take that and think of how that will help me grow? And I do feel the difficulties every day. I certainly feel certainly feel tired, but at the same time, I I feel like because I'm a mom, I'm a better business person. I'm more honest and connected with people. I'm more efficient with my time because I am business person and, am a marketing leader. I feel like I bring my full self to my kids when I'm with them. And so I don't, those two things together, while difficult and, not necessarily create the easiest at this moment right now for moms, there's two ways that I can think about it. And there's two story explanations that I can choose to tell myself. And I choose to tell myself that it's a great gift and that it allows me to develop in ways that I have never encountered before and I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Think about if you could write your new story, what would that be? If you're in a middle chapter right now, where did it start? Where are you going? And what do you see for yourself in the future? The creative narrative arc that's been identified in literature and also can be seen in real life is the hero's journey, which is a ancient map seen in myth, literature, film, and Joseph Campbell talks about it quite frequently. So I want to walk through it together because once I learned about it and started to dive more deeply into it, I found more meaning in the things I was watching and learning about, and then I just like to reflect upon it because it is a beautiful arc that traces all the individual stories that we see and hear and experience, and it brings them all into one universal experience that we all have, which I think is a beautiful thing. So, stages of the hero's journey. First is the ordinary world. This is the life before change, often comfortable, but seen as unfulfilling. So, examples of this: Frodo in the Shire, Moana on her island, you in a job that's fine, but, there is a part of you that says there's more. Second stage is the call to adventure, which the part of you that's saying there's more, a nudge or a longing to grow, explore, and shift. So this is when Moana hears the ocean. Simba in The Lion King is called home. You feel an inclination to do something different or, write or sing or, be a teacher or any variety of things, completely switch careers, go back to school. That call to adventure, that innate feeling is scary, uncertain. So after that, the third stage is the refusal of the call. Doubt or fear, it keeps you stuck. It is very hard for our minds and our egos who want to protect us for us to override those because what you're doing now is known and it is safe and it feels comfortable. So the refusal to call is the moment when doubts and fears keep you stuck. I can't. It's not the right time. In the Matrix, when Neo resists whether he should take the red pill or the blue pill, or Moana turns back from the island. Does it sound familiar? I feel like we go through these experiences all the time because we do get a lot of nudges for things to do. The fourth stage is meeting the mentor. A guide appears, someone who sees your potential. So in the mythical world, that would be someone like Yoda or Glinda, or in real life, it could be a therapist or a friend that cracks you open, but it could be something as simple as a podcast episode or a book or, something like that. So as much as I would love for Glinda to float in every time I am trying to make a decision and she's like the sign as to what I should actually do, sometimes the nudge is much more subtle, and then we need to go into ourselves and figure out whether to follow it. But, that is a magical moment because, the truth to follow is really in you as much as we would like for that answer to be external. The most beautiful part is that it is coming from you, which is also the scary part too, because then you are dealing with that uncertainty and not the external validation of certainty. So 5, crossing the threshold, deciding, yes, I'm going to write. I'm going to switch careers. I'm going to go back to school. In literature, Frodo leaves. In movies, Moana sails. You commit to doing something, you say yes. The good thing about taking this step is that it doesn't necessarily have to be, quitting my job, completely doing something else. If that is what, you're called to do, that is a great and a beautiful thing. But in order to, I guess, lessen the impact or the fear of something, you can take a small step forward. I think it was Oprah who said, when she was earlier on in her career and she had all these great ambitions, like she didn't need to know every step. She just needed to know the next step. And so that is that crossing the threshold moment. What is this next step that I'm taking towards this nudge that I'm feeling towards the dream that I have? And that will lead you in directions maybe you haven't imagined, but it will, it will serve that greater calling that you're feeling. So stage 6, test allies and enemies. So in the absolute story arc, going back to, drama and truly facing conflict, is challenge builds in you, allies emerge, old patterns arise. So once you've accepted that threshold, you begin growing in ways that you didn't anticipate you would have, because you do have the parts of you that are old, that needs to change, and you have to face those challenges. So you face imposter syndrome, but you meet friends and people who support you and who've been there before. All these things are very important and are key to recognize that the challenges, both internal and external, are an innate part of this hero's journey. Stage 7 is approach to the inmost cave. So this is the emotional and spiritual core, the mirror moment. Going into Frozen, this is when Elsa enters her ice palace. You face the part of yourself you've been avoiding. So again, that call for growth, the positive part of it, the reason why you have that initial urge is to get to that calling. But in order to get there, you do have to face yourself and create change. 8, the ordeal, the big test, often painful, always transformative. This is in The Matrix when Neo dies and is reborn. Moana questions her worth. You hit burnout, loss, grief. You think you have failure. And I've heard from many people that the moment that they feel failure, quite often after that moment, there's success. And it is the ability to push through and to remain committed to your vision, your calling, and to listen to your inner voice that can lead you to that ultimate resolution. So that is the next stage, the reward, the insight gained while you're going through fire. Moana realizes she is a chosen one. You discover your truth. You discover something greater about yourself. And then the road back, you return to your life and you are changed. Moana brings back her heart. You re-enter your family, work, or art, differently. And then step 11 is the resurrection, final challenge to test your embodiment. You speak up, you choose the higher path, you find your true self. Dorothy learns that whatever she had was really within herself the whole time. Then, returning, the 12th step, you share what you've gained and you become the guide and the teacher for others. And that's the story goes over and over in every country, culture, generation that we have. So this journey certainly isn't linear for us as individuals. For generation after generation, we cycle through it again and again in different parts of our lives, with work, with parenting, and creativity and love. And it is here to stay. So it is beneficial to learn it, listen to these stories, and absorb how others have reflected and gone through them, and that will help give you strength to carry through your own journey. So let me leave you with this. Maybe my son's stories about flying kangaroos or trek started in the mountain aren't just, silly and fantastical things. Maybe it's a reminder for us to think about our stories, to think about how we can creatively build our stories, that we can identify what the problem is, what the big scary, lions in the cave are, or what we're stuck in the mountain, how we can be our own heroes to come to the rescue, or how we can ask for help of others to come to the rescue, and how then we can develop from there, because it's in that period of conflict where the hero comes. And unlike kids and in these stories where my son is, automatically building the resolution and someone definitely comes to the rescue, let's trust and let's know that we have the power to come to the rescue, to build a resolution, and to be stronger people for it. And it is in those moments of challenge where we grow, and those are really moments of magic, because they are helping us become better people and better humans for ourselves, for the people around us, and for the world we have. So I invite you to think of moments of challenge as new ways of seeking magic and finding magic, and I hope you can find the magic in your day today. Thank you. Take care.